President Biden, do you have a reaction to the shooting in Kansas City?
The U.S. be concerned about the nuclear weapon in space from
We're getting more
Russia, sir?
information about the shooting. I don't have it all. I'll have it later tonight.
That's Biden. He was asked about the shooting in Kansas City. Welcome back to the program. Dana Lash here with you. Bottom of this first hour. You can listen coast to coast, until we all get shut down by Soros. Who knows? You can stream the radio program and you can watch the video simulcast on channel 347 Direct TV as well as YouTube. Always good discussion, and Facebook. This shooting in Kansas City, and it's real weird how the media was wall to wall coverage, and then. It's like as soon as it became known, maybe kind of who the suspects were, or, some of the other facts of the case or of the incident came out, the tragedy came out. It's like now the media doesn't really want to talk about it because I've seen people sitting in handcuffs, on street corners and that. And apparently they said two of these people were juveniles. Nobody knew what the facts were before they started running out and losing their minds about stuff. Like you have them calling for gun control now, and they need more gun control restrictions, et cetera, et cetera. And there was this one guy, he ended up blocking me. This one guy, I'm not going to say his name because this would be more attention than he ever had in his ever loving life. But he's like some Cardinals writer or whatever at, I think it's like KMOV in my hometown of St. Louis, right? And he was saying that, we need to have gun control restrictions. And he was basically saying that everybody who's, doesn't support gun, he's a Cardinals writer at KMOV. And people who don't support all this stuff, oh my gosh, you're just, horrible people, et cetera, et cetera. And a friend of mine who's in broadcasting had CC'd me on something that she had said to him. And I just simply said, define assault weapon. Because he was like, ban all assault weapons now. I am so tired of that term being used. And it's not me policing the language. What these jackwagons need to understand is that the language, the specificity is important because it invokes certain parts of the law that could determine whether or not you get a $1,500 fine or 15 years in prison. That's why specifics count. And if these people who only engage in this concern theater in order to clout chase on social media. And let's be real, none of these people give a rat's ass about the lives of any of these folks in any of these cities or any of these tragedies that have taken place. They care about looking like virtue signalers and they clout chase on social media. And why do I know this? Because these people are entirely absent when it comes out that, a repeat offender got a wrist slap in Kansas City. Another repeat offender got a wrist slap in St. Louis. Another repeat offender was able to just walk with no cash bail in New York. These people are always absent when it counts at the very germination of this tragedy because it's always somebody who is known. It's always somebody who's got a record. It's always someone who has numerous warning signs, and it doesn't take a due process eroding red flag law to see it and do something about it. And I'll be damned if I hear another one of these morons blame an innocent law-abiding gun owner. Alec Baldwin has killed more people than I have. Tired of it. Every day. Yesterday, and I don't want to make this about me, but I want to tell you how nuts gun control people are. Yesterday was the first time in 6 years that I went out for Valentine's Day. Right after the horrific, and my friends who lost children in Parkland, I can't even imagine what they deal with every single day, especially on Valentine's Day. But people were outright nasty if we went out in public on Valentine's Day because of that. So I just stayed home. We just never did anything. And these people, they have so much energy to be nasty, but where are they when it counts? These two juveniles? How is that my problem? How is it your problem? How is it the deer hunter's problem in southern Missouri who maybe carries to work and has a rifle in his truck and enjoys turkey hunting and deer hunting? How is it his problem? What about the mayor who wanted to defund the police? I mean, there's audio of him. This is what? Audio sent by 15. This is Brandon Johnson. Oh, this is Chicago. Don't we have the other, don't we have another mayor? Don't we have the mayor of Kansas City? Who's going on? Mayor of Kansas City wanted to defund the police. He was on video saying this just a couple of years ago. Do you know that Kansas City has been run by Democrats for what? How many decades? 5 decades? Oh, yeah. Kansas City has had a Democrat mayor, Democrat city council, Democrat everything for years and years and years. Same people who select the chief, etc. I mean, that you got to ask yourself a question. What is happening in these cities? Missouri, they're like, oh, Missouri is, tops for gun death. Oh, my goodness. It's a Second Amendment sanctuary state. Okay, tell me that you don't understand how state legislatures work without telling me that you don't understand how state legislatures work. It was essentially a resolution. It has no legal binding, but it is a statement. I mean, we've covered that. Some of these people need to extricate heads from backsides and learn civic responsibility and just basic 101. The crime rate in Missouri is driven by Kansas City and St. Louis. I lived in downtown St. Louis. This isn't my truth. It's the damn truth. I lived in downtown St. Louis. I lived in McKinley Heights, right across the street from Hodak's. I lived there for a number of years. I worked, the radio station that I started at was in Union Station. And so I lived real quick drive. My husband worked literally down the street. We needed to be by where our work was. Our kids were homeschooled. We were part of a fantastic St. Louis homeschooling community. But I lived in downtown St. Louis. I saw firsthand the restorative justice rot in that city. And it's not unique. It's just like Kansas City. My neighbors, and I love my neighbors, we had a very diverse street. And then we had a cousin that rented a house 2 doors down. We had this old brownstone on the street that we lived on McKinley Heights. Love my neighbors. We all looked out for each other. Then there were some folks that that started running drugs from their house at the end of the street. And I don't know what it was, but I mean, the neighbors because my kids would play with the neighborhood kids and they'd ride their bikes, or sometimes they'd skate up and down the street. And I would go out there with my sidearm, open carry, and I would make sure everything was cool. And the neighbors would not allow their kids to go outside unless they saw me out there carrying, because they knew that I will literally drag somebody if they try messing with any of these kids. And there was only one instance where somebody, I guess, was going to go and, get some drugs or something down the street, and they thought it was going to be smart speeding, up the street. And they got an earful from me. And I'm like, you might think that your city, I'm from the Ozarks. Did you see the Langamores on Ozarks? Because that's my fam damly. All right? We're the real FAFO people. Do not. We got family that has pig farms, so don't. And so they didn't ever come near our end of the street. And apparently the word went out. If you see that crazy lady outside, you stay away from her, and you come and get your drugs at the other end of the street. We called the police. The police would arrest them, and they were right back out. One of the people who I guess lived at the house for a while, because it was a drug house. One of the people who lived there was involved in a shooting in Northside. And then, and we'd get home from work. I'd get home from broadcast, and because it was a nice, sweet street, we never had no issue. You're going to have issues everywhere. But I liked our neighbors. I liked being able to see the fireworks at the bog. I loved our homeschool community. I loved, we lived right by the brewery, could smell the hops in the evening. And our neighbors, we'd get home, and our neighbors, they'd, be having a glass of wine or something on their front porch, and we'd go out and we'd all talk. And they're like, yeah, the one who had gotten pot for being involved in the shooting in Northside, out within 2 days, out within 48 hours. All the neighbors were all talking about how, oh my gosh, they just keep arresting and rearresting the same folks over and over again. There's no penalty. There's never a penalty. It happened over and over again. That's what drove crime. Some of my neighbors would leave and they'd move to the suburbs because they were tired of the city not enforcing the law, or if it wasn't an issue of enforcement, they got tired of the judges, the corrupt judges, and these stupid corrupt DAs letting law enforcement hang and just letting these cats back out on the street. And that was enraging. The folks on my street, we all appreciated the police. And we also knew that it wasn't their responsibility if the DA wouldn't bring charges, or if they reduced charges, or if these repeat offenders got let off. But what a statement that I had to open carry before my neighbors felt comfortable enough for their kids to come outside and play. That's St. Louis. I lived in the city. So when I see some of these people out here saying, "Oh, well, this is a result of," like the Brady group. Woman, please. Let me tell you something. That the responsibility of this is all the damn Democrats y'all keep supporting and donating to. The same decade after decade after decade after decade, Democrat mayor, Democrat city council, Democrat hand-picked chief, not elected. Same thing over and over again. Then you get the Democrat corrupt DAs, the Democrat corrupt judges, and then you wonder why. You wonder why crime is increasing. I can pretty much tell you that's exactly what is happening in Kansas City. That's exactly it. That's what is happening in Kansas City right now. 2 juveniles. Now, they said that there was, a rifle involved maybe, but there was also maybe a handgun. How did juveniles get a handgun? How were they walking around how old were they? Good grief. This has to do with parents not raising their kids. You're not going to disarm me because you raised a criminal. There's just so much of this. Audio soundbite 8. This was one of these CNN stooges. I don't even know who this is, but this is that Second Amendment sanctuary thing that they got wrong. Listen to this.
Their rationale, and of course this is part of the Republican Party platform now, their rationale is let's make it as easy as possible for people to get guns so people are armed when these things happen. We see how quickly they happen. We see that police are on scene. It's not necessarily a guarantee, and maybe not worth rolling back all of our gun regulations.
So this lady,
I mean, Missouri is a Second Amendment sanctuary state, so they actually they passed a law a couple years ago that seemed to prohibit federal and state law enforcement officials from working together on cases that might be viewed.
So this is Jennifer Massia. She's a moron, and she's with the Trace. And I just think that if you're going to go on television and purport to be an expert on something, then maybe you should have a basic grasp of facts. It was a resolution that was passed, and all it says is that you cannot sit here and commandeer state sovereignty and demand that the state, I mean, basically it's like Prince v. U.S. I mean, if you want to go ahead and have that debate on the supremacy clause as it relates to state sovereignty. But I digress. I know more about this issue than the people at the Trace, and I lived in this state. These are people who, it's a Bloomberg-funded entity, and they try to pass themselves off as ombudsmen for gun control or Second Amendment advocacy, and they're all paid anti-gun lobbyists. That's exactly what they do. And of course, I just think naturally, if you're attracted to that line of work, it attracts a certain sort of lower intellectualized person, as you could see by her explanation there. They didn't make it. The Second Amendment Sanctuary Resolution did not make it easier for people to get guns. They still have to go through and satisfy all of the same federal requirements that every single state does. That's not something that you can simply skip. But you know what? Characteristics aren't being satisfied is what I just explained with the DAs and the judges. I mean, they're not even giving minimum mandatory in a lot of these sentencing when they reduce everything down, or when they do it to cashless bail. I mean, I could sit here and tell you case after case after case after case after case in my home state as it relates to violent repeat offenders who have gone on to commit essentially what are considered mass casualty incidents by FBI definitions, 3 or more fatalities, simply because of the restorative justice rot that these people love to celebrate, and then they blame innocent people for the chaos that it creates.